We're live. Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Good morning, all. I'm Judy Calogero. I'm calling to order the Glens Falls Industrial Development Agency board meeting. This is our October regular board meeting. Before we start with the IDA matters, I just want to say for the record that we have 4 meetings today. And we'll start with the IDA, then we'll go to the Civic Development Corporation, then the Local Development Corporation, and then Urban Renewal. And while we don't always monthly have to do a Civic Development Corporation meeting or an Urban Renewal meeting, we're doing them this month to take a look at our budgets and prepare those so that we can get them posted up on the ABO website, which is one of the requirements. So I just wanted to mention that as we start. So we've called the meeting to order, and we have a quorum here. 2 members are absent, Mary Gooden and Tim Larson, but everyone else is here, and so we will start. We're also joined by our key staff and advisors, so thank you all for being here today. I'll start with administrative reports. Just briefly, as the members are aware, we had received through the LDC a number of questions from a member of the Common Council about how the public authorities in the city operate in general, and then specific questions concerning, in particular, are we audited, those types of things. And so all the members here received a copy of those questions from the council member, and I want to thank our attorney Karaleas for preparing the responses for those questions and doing it in very short order to get it before a common council meeting that was held, I think, last week. So Kara, thank you for that. You did an excellent job in describing what it is that we do and how we do it, and everyone's received a copy of it, and all the members, the mayor also sent a copy of that to all the members of the common council. The mayor and I talked about 2 issues. One of the things that I think we realized by the questions that the council member asked was that maybe not all members of the council are looking on the city website at our documents, which we post on a regular basis, and at the very least monthly. And they were not aware, or this one member was not aware, that we have an annual audit, that we follow the ABO rules, and that the ABO has actually even been here. The controller's office runs the ABO, and that his staff have been here, and that those meetings with the ABO all went rather well, and our audits have all been rather well. And those audits are all posted. But I think because maybe the members are not looking in the detail at those items, the mayor and I talked about 2 things. One is that going forward, that for these monthly meetings, we would CC all members of the Common Council, and not just our member, Mary Gooden, but that we would CC all of them so that they had our monthly financial reports, our meeting agenda, meeting documents, our financial reports, and then also if they wanted to come to the meetings, they're always invited to come, but they would have that notification and not have to rely on going to the city website to see it. And so that was one item. And the second item was that we thought when we get to our annual meeting in March, in preparation for that, we have a lot of detail that we go through. We look at all of our annual reports. We do go through that audit process, and we thought maybe we should form some type of committee of our members that would go and meet with members or a committee of the Common Council in advance of that annual meeting to kind of just go through those items and see if they have questions for us. And that could be done before our annual meeting or maybe right after, once we have everything done, but either way. And so the mayor and I wanted to throw that out to you today, so I'll do it here as part of the IDA meeting, but it really is reflective of all 4 of these public authorities and how we operate. And so let me leave it at that and see if you guys have any comments or questions that you want to ask and any thoughts on those ideas.
I would just merely iterate, not reiterate, to the members of the Common Council that this is an open public meeting and that they're more than welcome to not only attend, but we're on video,
Yes.
and whatever. And as the year goes by, as questions arise, we will get them answered rather than to have the necessity of having another meeting and reviewing everything twice.
Okay.
It just seems to me that would
Well, we
be
figured,
duplicative.
so, it's a good conversation to have. Yeah, I think that the one council member who asks the questions is not on a lot of boards, and so I don't think that he understands. And so this is a great education. I think Kara's response was a great education and a clarification on what we do. I don't think it would hurt us to maybe just, again, once a year, right around the time of our annual meeting, to have a small group of us of something and just give an update about where each of the authorities are in case that the council. We know everybody's busy. We know that they can absolutely.
But we would have to broadcast. We would have to publicly. That's all I'm saying.
Well, we would if there was a quorum, but we also broadcast all the council meetings anyway. So it's being. Peter could. I don't know if he can do 2 videos at once, but
right.
They are anyway. I just wanted you to,
right.
It's something to think about.
So
and also, there were several others, by the way.
It's got it, right.
There were several other council members. Certainly, Councilwoman Gooden knew all the answers immediately because she's here with us. And then so did Councilman Landry, right? He knew those answers, but because he's on the county EDC, right? And
on the board.
On the county board. So, there's. I think again, and Councilwoman Palmer is a member of SUNY Adirondacks board, so she would certainly understand how public authorities work, and she may be on several others. So I think it was just that, and so anyway, it's worth thinking about, or maybe even just
maybe we even just have Jeff and Patrick make a quick presentation at a Common Council meeting in March, saying we've had our annual meeting, here's the results, here are the documents.
It might be something as simple as, because you have elections every 4 years or for no other reason, you have new people who come in, giving them some brief understanding of what the individual agencies do, right?
Yeah.
It should be noted, I think, that, the questions that were posed in the inquiry particularly were referencing the LDC, but that was only because the LDC was the entity that was involved in the transaction. I think that the same questions might come up. Well, what does the CDC do? No, if the CDC did something, they might ask the same question. If the IDA does, what is the IDA?
Yeah.
Does it? So it might be worthwhile at some point, maybe at the beginning of a given term of elected officials, to say, listen,
Yes.
here's these 4
I think that's
agencies. They're around. Here's what they do.
Very wise.
And if you are more interested in knowing what they do, attend these meetings.
Yes.
And then you'll follow along. It might be a simpler way to do it.
Yeah.
And I know I knew it, but I also had forgotten a lot. And when I became mayor, I went, oh, that's right. So it's possible to know it and to forget it too if it's not something you're thinking about on a regular basis.
Good.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all, and so we'll go forward with some of that, and appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, all right. So then, let's go to CEO report.
I have nothing until the project report. So.
Project report's very good. So we have the minutes from the September 12th meeting. Any comments or changes to that? I think I had one. Maybe it was some, in one of our
Thought there was a
minutes, the
mistake,
word
but you were
August,
mistaken.
the word August was August.
Oh.
Augustly.
And
That's a new word, because it was very Augustly.
Yeah,
right.
it was very
It wasn't
August.
quite August, but it was a
But
warm
right-
day in September.
Maybe it was LDC. Oh, no, it is under resolution number 36-2-2024. It's Augusty.
Augusty.
Along the sea.
Yeah.
Well, that's clearly wrong. No,
That's the only change I had. Okay. With that one change, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved?
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved, thank you. The financial report, this is for September 30, 2024, but also we will be looking at the proposed budget. So let's do that. At the same time, Mark, you go for it.
Yeah, all
Do you
we
wanna-
had expense-wise was the annual backup from Store Technology for 600, legal bill for 256, and 40% of my pay is at 294. We got the Bonaccio check for admin for 750, went into income, and CD interest was about $297.
So, what was the Bonaccio check for?
The admin.
Admin? The
Right, we had
admin?
to pay
Okay.
for,
Yeah.
Okay, and that's, okay.
That wasn't the,
Deposit.
that wasn't the administrative fee. That was the application fee, right? The $750.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then you have, got the other check, I don't
The other
know,
check,
yeah.
deposited those yesterday.
Yesterday, okay.
Yeah.
So that'll show up next month.
Right.
Very good, okay. And before we go to the budget, any questions on the financial report?
Did you say, I'm sorry, did you say backup? Store tech for backup?
Store Technology, yeah. They were backing up documents every Tuesday.
For just the LDC?
IDA.
IDA,
Like, sorry.
which
I'll
meeting we're in.
remember which
Right,
meeting I'm in.
right.
Okay, thank you.
IDA paid the bill because they got more money.
Yeah,
So is that for all,
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the financial report as presented?
so moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Financial report is approved, please post that. And Mark, and so, I think I explained earlier, we have budgets, we do 5-year budgets each year. We're adding another year on, and so the document that you have both shows updates to the current budget as well as the proposed budget for our 5th year out. And so that would be, is it 2029?
Yeah.
2029.
Yeah.
So Mark, anything else you want to add to that?
No, just show September actual compared to this, the annual budget, and then the actual year, pretty consistent with the
Yep.
prior years, you know. That's it.
And so when we see next month's actual budget, we won't see that negative number because you've got more monies that we're adding.
Right.
Very good. Okay. Any questions for Mark, for me? Good. And so we will be posting this both to our website and to the AVO
are you talking about
website?
the budget itself?
Yeah.
I was just gonna make a couple quick comments
Oh,
about
sure,
it.
yes.
Just so you know, one of the things it's sort of difficult with an organization like this, which is relatively small and has relatively few transactions. The transactions we do have, right, when there's support needed for projects, there's a fee that comes in, which is relatively large compared to the size and budget of the organization. So, when you look at budget lines, of course, you're trying to sort of flatten these numbers to the extent that you can't sort of foresee things. So for instance, we've had for income of the organization, you can see that there's a relatively small amount of agency fees. I believe for the last couple of years, we haven't had any agency fees. This year, you know, on the basis of the project we've been working on for about 3 years now, at least actively working on, you know, we're going to get an agency fee of roughly $70,000 to the IDA. So obviously that covers a lot of these years, and then you'll have these years. Now, I think going forward, there's going to be some opportunities, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. You know, there's several other projects in the pipeline, as everybody around here knows. There's a lot of activity going on. You know, sometimes these projects merit support and need it, and sometimes they don't. So, you know, a lot of them are prospective, and people come along and they say, "Can you help?" And you say, "Well, it depends on whether you need help." So, you know, we're looking at some different opportunities here, but it sort of explains why you have these sort of crazy spikes that make the budget look slightly under, and then largely over, and then slightly under, and slightly under, and then way over. So we'll adjust these as we sort of look at pipeline issues down the road, but that sort of explains that. And the others I'll mention very briefly. You'll see that there's a line for grant income, and Judy and I talked recently about something that I'll bring up when we get to other business.
Okay, very good. Any questions or comments for Jeff or for Mark or for me? Okay, there being none, is there a motion to approve the IDA proposed budget, which has our adjustments for our current year and budget outline to 2029?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions, any nays? There being none, budget is passed. And again, we'll get that posted both to our website and to the ADO website. So going back to our agenda here, let's get to our payment of bills. In Schedule A, we have 2 bills to pay for a total of $1,828.50.
Where's your bill?
I know.
For, we
For August.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We probably got him over,
From Tara for August.
no, we probably got him over after the.
Cut off.
it's
Gotcha.
fine. We
Okay.
paid directly from the, for the company.
That I know,
Yeah.
but, you know, our usual.
Our usual, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
Just wondering. Right. Just want to make sure.
I do the
you know.
work, not the bill.
Right, exactly. Okay. Just,
As long as she
Yeah,
gets
you know.
paid.
right.
She doesn't seem worried about it.
She turned down the
She
fruit
told us
basket.
about
I know.
You turned down the
She
fruit
thought she
basket.
was building an August. Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what it was.
Right. Oh, you see.
Okay.
Okay,
Is there a
sorry.
motion to approve payment of bills as presented, even though it's missing one?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? There being none, the bills shall be paid. I guess I'll sign those. All right. So, no other administrative reports, correct?
Mhm.
Very good, Jeff? Or,
Yeah.
yeah, Jeff. Okay, let's go to project reports, and I turn it right over to Jeff.
Yeah, so as you probably know, there's been a flurry of activity, you know, in the last month or two, really. There's been a lot of stuff behind the scenes, obviously, but we finally, all these things came to a head, in the sense that, you know, the market center is moving along. We could talk a little bit more about that, I think, when we get to the LDC, really, because it's not necessarily germane to the IDA. But we did sort of close on the 3 properties, in the sense of the IDA's pilot. They began working. There was a little bit of a holdup because they wanted to get working on the building before we could even close, and we didn't want to discourage that because we were trying to get these things moving as quickly as possible. So the pilots and the tax incentives are in place. We've closed on the documents. We've got a slew of documents we just recently received I got from you, Kara. We'll have to talk about which of those need to be posted or which don't. I'm guessing many of them do, but not all of them.
Right.
But obviously we have those. So this project is moving at pace, and we're looking at probably having they're anticipating the building to be completed probably within 12 months. The 3 buildings, I should say. So phase 1 of the DRI should be fully complete within 12 months. They're working on exteriors initially. There's been a little bit of, not delay, but complication because they're now on the Market Center site, trying to work on the sides of buildings in which the Market Center construction folks are currently working. So there were some legal liability issues that we had to cover first of all, and then we had to make sure that they weren't compromising some of the work that we've been doing previously, especially on the pocket park, because they're trying to work on the side of the Hot Shots building over the site that we were racing to complete in order to meet Department of State deadlines, which have been slightly extended for us. So that was a welcome news that we got done. But we're optimistic. There seem to be all things moving forward down on South Street. That's generating, as I've mentioned previously, a lot of interest in other properties in the area. I have almost daily, certainly weekly, I have multiple people asking me about different properties down there. You probably noticed that there's several for sale, and some of them that aren't even listed are sort of, intimating that they're available. So we're trying to sort of negotiate all those things. And I mentioned that all to you just by way of mentioning that it's very likely that some of these buildings are, to the extent that we want to maintain them and restore them, would almost certainly need help from the IDA. I'm sure you can guess that some of them that people have suggested should be torn down. Other people tell me, well, it's possible to save, but I think that possibility is implicit in that claim is that they would need some help, some tax support. So just to be aware of them, as I was talking about some of the pipeline issues coming down the road. The other thing I want to mention was, of course, we've been working with Crew Coffee. As you know, the LDC came to a sale price at the appraised value for the property there. That's the entire lot, about a 5-acre lot, so it's a large parcel. The reason, they bought the parcel for simplicity's sake, right, to the way they were sort of zoned, to expedite the fact that they're trying to move out of Saratoga and build this property as soon as possible. They have indicated as well that they're going to, that Kyle Brocker, you all met, who's here, has indicated that he's likely going to need some assistance from the IDA as well. There has been some discussions, they were, I think, even talking to the Warren Washington IDA. But we recognize that this is property within the city limits of Glens Falls. And so he's prepared I'll call it a sample, not a sample, a rough draft of an application that he submitted. And I want to take a look at that, Judy, have you take a look at it, Kara, before, in case they want to need to make any revisions before they resubmit that.
Is there any tax from Queensberry on that site?
I think there are some
Use fees.
use fees, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think they call them taxes, but yeah. And
They separate, they've done what we cannot do because we're a city, and that is they have a series of use taxes, fire use, or fire district tax, and it's not a tax, it's a fire use fee. And then a whole series of EMS and stuff. So we've looked at that because of the large number of not-for-profits that are located within the city, and not-for-profits would, like everyone else, would have to pay their fair share of any use fees, and the current state law prohibits city from having those. Yeah, municipal. Yeah. So anyway.
And I think that
yes, they do have that, and.
And I think the challenge you have, and maybe some of these were avoided. I don't know when the pipe fitters, I think they're a nonprofit, aren't they? Is the pipe fitters union?
The special assessments they would have to pay,
Yeah.
Right.
So
regardless.
they're supposed to pay it, and we're trying to bill them because we hadn't for years.
Yeah. Well, I think what we're trying to do in this case is we want to make sure that they're not overburdened because of this sort of overlap, right? There's going to be taxes, there's going to be these fees. Some of these may be unique to these properties. We want to make sure that they don't create an overburden on anybody who's trying to sort of build in those properties. So we'll look at that when we get that and see, obviously we don't want to say, well, the city's getting punished because there's these other fees. At the same time, we want to make there's not a redundancy. If there's taxes that may imply some of these fees that they're already paying for other these services, maybe there's a way that we can sort of accommodate those in a pilot or something.
And I ask because if there were Queensberry or fees, then it would make sense to have the Warren Washington IDA handle it. And as you will recall, I think we worked very closely with them when the Glens Falls Housing Authority was doing their project And so, if that's something that he
Yeah.
wants to do.
Well, that's what we want to make
But
sure. We
if-
want to look at it holistically and make sure that it's the best benefit for the business. Who's
Is,
here.
is probably through here, I think.
Yeah, well, that's right. He's going to submit that. We can take a look at it. We can see if there's some opportunities or, just ways that everybody's, comes out fair for everybody.
Okay.
That's all for project reports. I did have a little other business that I wanted to mention, and it just came up yesterday. We were talking about it. The city has had for several years, in fact, I think one of the last grants that Ed Bartholomew got was, on behalf of the city, was an EPA assessment grant. These are grants, these are no-match grants that entities can apply for to do different kinds of tasks. In the case of this particular grant, it was for assessment and planning for brownfield sites. The city had a grant that was, I think we got it in 2020, and I think it was approved in July of 2020, which was like the same year Ed died. So I sort of inherited that as the economic development director. That I just asked for an extension for a year. There's some funding left in that, but I think it might be worth at least a brief exploration to see if maybe that would be a grant that would be appropriate for the IDA to apply for. We can apply for grants. You saw that there's a line in the budget for grant income. There's administrative fees that are available for this. Jim Thatcher has helped. Jim Thatcher has helped me. He does some of the work on that. CT Mail, along with Barton Judas, does some work on the assessments themselves, so he's familiar with it. We may have a conversation. The reason I mentioned that to this body now is because if that made sense, and I'll talk to the mayor about this as well, that I think the application has to be in mid-November, like within days, and there would be some funds that we would need to generate to apply for this. But as I say, I think it might be appropriate. I'm not.
Are you thinking prospectively
No,
to have, or do we have interest?
The city has a brownfield assessment grant.
Right.
It's actually, the one we have is probably the third one we've received
Yeah, I think-
over the years.
yeah.
I'm not sure whether having this one that still has money left and we're extending it, whether that is a challenge as far as reapplying, because you don't want to wait until you have nothing left. And they'll let you with a little bit of money left in the budget. Does the city's experience in having applied for these and having gotten these override the fact that there's still an open grant when you
Right.
apply for a new one? So I want to sort of explore that a little bit, but something I think would be worthwhile, at least for the IDA to explore as a body that can,
And give us an idea of the dollar amount that you think.
The current grant was a 4-year, $300,000 grant. The current grant, I think, is up to $500,000, and I think you're supposed to expend it over 4 to 5 years. They'll give you extensions, but I think it's planned over 5 years. You can spend a decent amount, I think it's 20 to 30% of this on one property. And you can maybe imagine perhaps a property or two that in the city that might be worth sort of doing some assessment. And it's not just the assessment, an initial assessment.
Remediation too, right?
Well, this particular grant is not remediation, but this does count for planning for
Identifying.
the cleanup and planning for the redevelopment.
Okay.
So if you're looking at, what might you do with this property once you do this cleanup, it can, and then you can apply at some point in this process, and
For a different
obviously
grant.
you benefit if you have the planning, the assessment grant to go get the cleanup grant that they just funded.
Yes, you've got all the
So
paperwork done.
obviously,
Hard for them to turn down the
yeah,
second
sure,
piece.
yeah, you're confirming what they've already given you money for.
Right.
So, again, it's just something, it's another tool that the IDA has, and I did research, and there are lots of IDAs that write these things. It's appropriate because they're the Industrial Development Authority that sort of focuses on these kinds of properties that have these kinds of problems.
So would the cost be, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
would the cost be for writing it, or
Yeah.
would the cost be for the local is there? a
No, there's no
local
local match, and
So-
there's actually admin fees that can be generated to operate, or to manage and oversee the grant, so the agency could end up, so there'll be some cost to writing. It's a complicated grant to write, so I would have to get.
How
Can
long
you
do we have?
reimburse those fees out of the grant?
You cannot.
Yeah, right.
Although
Right.
you get
That-
administrative
thank you.
fees that cover some of these costs if you
Right,
get the
but
grant, so.
what, we've got we've got the
Well,
properties
the-
that we.
one of the reasons I
Yeah.
mentioned is because, the IDA, as you saw from the payment of bills, our greatest expenses right now are loaning money to the other agencies, because we just don't have a lot of expenses. I mean, in that sense, it's a wonderful thing. Obviously, it's not just a slush fund to throw money at everything, but when there's opportunities that the agency can use, the authority can use to benefit the city, indirectly or directly, I think it's worth pursuing.
Do you have an idea what the cost of writing?
I would guess somewhere in between, under $10,000, between $7,000 to $10,000.
So our next board meeting is the 14th of November. What's the deadline
I think they're due that day.
that day?
So we should take action
We
on
should,
this
yeah,
now.
absolutely.
One version of that EPA grant is due that day. I don't know if it's the same one or if they're all the same date.
Okay.
Well, why,
Why not?
why not?
Since
right?
we're
We
having
have-
this-
Well, and I'd like to, maybe if we could get a resolution to make it, contingent on, again, I want to make sure that, that the city's moving in the right direction. If they say, oh, it's much better, then the city has track record for
Well,
whatever.
right, we could,
Yeah.
we could.
And we still have, we have an
make a-
opportunity there at the city.
We could make a resolution here that says if
You'd
you
authorize it.
determine, that if you make the decision that you're going to submit and that it's.
For the idea.
Wise to do.
And that, right, and that you've got the
authorization.
staff time and staff help to get the document done. And that if you're gonna keep the cost under, let's say, $12,000.
Yeah,
Then we would.
We authorize.
We would authorize
that
it.
would be great.
That
Would that be all
expense.
right?
I
agree.
would also suggest that you add to that, authorize the scheduling of a public hearing, because I think you have to have that piece too.
Over
for the
10,
application.
yeah.
Not for the EPA application.
Have to
The
have had-
application requires a public hearing?
It
And
doesn't.
don't we need 30 days notice for that we wouldn't have it.
I just only mention this because I know I have another client that's applying for this, and it's due the 14th, and they have to have a public hearing.
But is it because of the
scheduled
body
before.
or because of the agent of the
It's
grant?
another idea. It's not Warren Washington.
Right.
Well,
So let's do that.
So I mean, you could just in case, and then
Yeah.
it would be covered. If you don't have to schedule it, you don't have to.
Yeah. So a motion to pass.
So I'll make the motion
As amended by Kara,
as amended by Carol.
and I will second it.
um,
Ta-da.
To
To,
submit an application.
right, to approve payment to submit an application for an EPA assessment grant for the
Yeah.
Up to
2020.
$12,000.
Up to $12,000.
Up to $12,000 for the cost of submission, and that you plan and arrange for a public hearing.
if
uh,
necessary.
if necessary.
necessary and in compliance with the application rules.
We have a motion, we have a second?
We do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? There being none,
Very
motion
good.
is approved.
Okay, thank you.
Get the name of the grant. Give Karen the name of that grant too. Okay.
Right, so put it in the resolution?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So we've done Market Square, Market Center, Tech Meadows, and we just did other business. I don't think there's a need for any executive session. Next meeting is November 14th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you. Okay.
Now we're doing which one? CDC?
CDC. So, the, calling to order the Glens Falls Civic Development Corporation. Thank you all for being here. We have a quorum and our staff are here. The administrative reports first. Our last meeting was held on March 28th, 2024. We have those minutes. Any questions, comments, changes? There being none, is there a motion to approve the meeting held on March 28th in those minutes as presented?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved, thank you. We also have the minutes from the nominating governance and audit committee that was held on the same day. Is there a motion to accept those?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Didn't- yeah.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
No nays, no abstentions, so those minutes, both sets are approved, thank you. We'll get those posted. Financial report for 9 months ending September 30, 2024. It's here, Mark is here if you have any questions. I mean, as you know, we've had no business before the Civic Development Corporation
In years.
in years. And as you know, it's okay.
Right, I guess.
Now that interest rates are going up, we may be having.
You never know.
You
Yeah.
never know. And so I think all the members here know this, and just, for the record, while there has been no business before the Civic Development Corporation, and some municipalities don't do it, it's not possible here in the city of Glens Falls, because we've used the Civic Development Corporation for bond financing, and we still have, we've done it in the past for both the hospital and for the Crandall Library. And the bond that, for the Crandall Library is still open, and so that's why we stay open, is for that purpose. As you know, the bond for the Glens Falls Hospital was refinanced and restructured without and did not need our assistance, and so that's no longer part of our business operations, but Crandall Library is. And so, in compliance with the ABO, we do prepare a budget for operations, and we do have to have an annual audit done, as you know. And so Mark has prepared a updated budget to take us out to 2029. Everyone's got a copy of that. Mark, do you want to add anything?
No,
No?
pretty consistent.
Okay. Any questions or comments on the budget as presented?
Just that it's worth noting that we did reduce the expenses at least by, switching our auditing firm. So you'll notice that the adopted budget in 2023 is higher than it is going forward, just because we're saving a little bit of money.
Okay. And keep that going. Keep that same audit firm going.
That savings.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the CDC proposed budget as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? There being none, the budget is passed as presented, and we'll get that posted. Any other business, Jeff?
Nope.
There being none, a motion to adjourn. It says here that we'll meet in November, but I don't think it will be needed, so we probably won't meet again until the annual meeting in March. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. And I'm turning this over to the mayor.
You're doing so good though, Judy. Just like,
I don't know.
you're on a roll.
I don't know.
Thank you.
A lot of talking.
Good morning. Let us see. Let us call to order the Greater Glens Falls Local Development Corporation meeting. We still have a quorum. Thank you for everyone for attending. First up on our agenda is administrative reports, I believe. First, I want to thank everybody. The property of the property sale was complete late last week. The bank accounts now include $395,000 proceeds from the sale of 36 Elm and 45 South Street to Glens Falls Ventures 1, the Bonaccio Company. I think it's important to recognize that the LDC has held on through thick and thin to the goal of putting the former and the future together, the incubator building back to productive use. The city as a whole owes this board a debt of gratitude for holding fast to these properties for many years, and the burden that it presented to the city. So how fantastic is this, huh? We talked, geez, it was only a few months ago that we were worried because of the changing economy and Bonaccio himself saying, geez, I don't know under these conditions that we can move forward. And we we're worried that one of the biggest brownfields in the city of Glens Falls that have been vacant for over 30 years would not move forward, and it has, and it is fantastic. And I don't know, I was gonna bring it up in the last council meeting too, and instead we probably are gonna do just a separate press release about it. At the council meeting, there were 2 council members that voted no to change adjust the DRI budget, and there were some concerns about the contract that we had with the master lease, and today we're going to pass this sublease. I think that's because of the not knowing how this is all going to play out in the future with their subcommittees and finding it. And just again, I think that we talked earlier about the questions about how these public authorities operate. And so we know that this is a great opportunity. We're working hard to make sure that we not only get these properties back on the taxes and get this building going, but then look to find a public-private partnership that can lead us forward, so that neither the city, the LDC, or anybody else, one entity, is faced with a long-term burden of this. There were also some concerns. There was a letter in the local Chronicle from a business owner who clearly misunderstands that the mission of this building moving forward is that might compete with them, even though that the documents that we have, the updated documents that we're working on about this, that it's the exact opposite. This building is not to compete with any building or with any businesses in the Glens Falls region and Warren County. It's to promote those, right? That we're hoping that all restaurants and local producers in our makers market use this building to discover all of the others. So you may buy a sandwich there that's made from a local restaurant, but the whole object is to get them to go to the local restaurant, right? That is in our business plan. It is clear, but I think there's been some fear out there and some incomplete information, and I'll work to address that, and I know you will as well. And later on, we'll talk about re-engaging those subcommittees and doing a public meeting to address this. So I want to take a moment before we got too deep into this to congratulate all of you for your hard work and sticking through this. We had some scary times this summer. I know I did. I referred to this building possibly being my Burger King, or our Burger King, and that is not the case, and congratulations.
And Mayor, I just want to add to that too,
Yeah.
that the part of the complexity of that real estate closing had to do with the financing, and the financing is complicated. And it's not something that is done every day. It involved a brownfield building, but it also involved historic tax credits. And the lender involved in the transaction hadn't done that before. And there were numerous attorneys. And I heard that the closing didn't even go until 9:15 at night, that it went so late. And so when you think about that, that added to the issues, the complexity, and it could happen again to some of the other
But,
projects
you know, and
that we're talking
I
about.
think this also points to, the challenge you have when you have these older communities that want to retain their historic integrity, or for complicating factors like environmental concerns, you have to maintain. In the case of those 3 buildings, 2 of them, I think, have historic value that was worth preserving. The other had compromises that didn't really allow you to tear it down. All those things create a lot of complications. What that means, of course, going forward is that if you're going to sort of try and restore these buildings, the process is long, the process is sometimes grueling, and the process can be expensive. And so when you have, we're talking about the value of these organizations. One of the things I think you need to look at is how they can facilitate, even if it takes time. A lot of times, the one thing that this entity has, along with the IDA, is the staying power that private enterprises sometimes don't have, whether they want to or not. We were fortunate in some ways that there was a relatively large, pot of gold, if you will. I hate to use that term in this, but I mean, there was a lot of incentives at the end. If Bonacho could spend the time and money, they owned Sandy's for 3 years, without doing anything with it. Almost 5 years, really. So, it takes a lot of wherewithal, and fortitude for developers who want to sort of go through this process and don't say, well, let's just come and tear them down. We've got now, as we get all these development pressures going forward, there's a lot of people who say, let me tear this down and I'll build something new, which happens in lots of gentrified areas. Right? Then you have a lot of people who justifiably say, save this or save that or save everything. And you have to pick and choose. Obviously, sometimes they're worth saving, sometimes not. But when you do choose to save them, there's a process that involves these historic tax credits. I believe, Kara, there's something like 9 lawyers or 7 or 8 lawyers involved in this process.
Yeah. And those were just the people on the emails. So.
Right. So, I mean, every small developer who comes by, they wonder, they sometimes say, well, I need a lawyer. And you go, no, you'll need a half dozen lawyers. And so, these processes are difficult, and I think it's worthwhile to pursue them. But I think, somehow the public have to understand that if you're going to do these, it's not just saying, why aren't you moving forward? Why aren't you moving forward? Well, here's why. This is a point-perfect example of why and how these agencies, these public authorities can help.
And so often we talk about the commercial activities that we're adding to the downtown, and we don't maybe as frequently talk about the residential housing that's being added.
Yeah.
But there's so much comment these days in the media about the need for more housing, and between the phase 1 and the phase 2 projects here on South Street in Elm, we're adding 88 new units of housing, rehabilitation of existing and new, and based on the size of those apartments of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments, and the mixing of incomes, you're adding probably at least 230 people to living in our downtown area. Had we probably talked about that a little bit more, to each and every restaurant probably would have come to that common council meeting to support it, because can you imagine that you've got another 230 people living in the downtown and going to Raoul's, Downtown City Tavern, any of those places. This is great for our downtown, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I think for me, the process is, I feel like no matter what we did, we've had, since I've been mayor, we've had over 4 different DRI updates in the community. 1 at the library, 2 at Queensberry Hotel, and then we had a public meeting the week before this council meeting just about the budget changes, which were very minimal, right, compared to this $50 million investment in our downtown. The problem is, it didn't seem like every time we answered a question, there were 2 more that came up, and you were like, well, I know we've said that, right? I mean, there were people that actually appeared to be a little surprised about this 336 Elm, and we, like, it's hard to not go, get to a point where I was like, wait, that was a major part of the original DRI application and the charrettes that Ed Bartholomew and Jack Diamond had down at the Civic Center, right? And this has been consistent throughout. And then the question was, shouldn't we postpone because we have a clarity on the contract? And we're like, no, this is a commercial contract. We know that it's a good one. We need to pass this now because financing, because we need to close on the building, and this has been 7 years in the project. So it almost appeared as though I was pushing it and that I was in a hurry, and it's hard for me to feel like I'm in a hurry on a project that's 7 years to be completed. That, I mean, it's like, but it's felt that way, and it kind of appeared. I mean, I had people saying, why are you pushing this down people's throats? And I was like, oh my God, please know that that's not the case. I'd be glad to answer any individual questions, right? And so so we just got to keep going. And that's why you'll hear me talk before we're done today about the next steps with the subcommittees, because there are questions that we can't answer right now.
Well, and
Because we couldn't work on those subcommittees for the details on this market center until we could get the project underway, right?
well, it's you know, it's difficult, and this is of course a unique situation in the sense that you had all these different buildings, all these different agencies, all these different funding sources. You know, in the case of this, for instance, you know, when you say, well, why are you hurrying now? When you got to the point where the market center is beginning and Bonaccio has gotten the tax credits for the phase 2, right? They now have a time frame in which they're going to start building this phase 2 building, which is going to be early next year. That means the farmers market's building will be gone, right? That means we have to get them over here. That means we have to close on these now because they're all being tied together. So it's almost impossible to try to explain these things in like a 30-second answer in front of a body. I mean, they're not invalid questions, but they're difficult to sort of put all these pieces together, which are taking place over, as the mayor said, 7 years, you know, and in fact, for my purposes, 3 years before I arrived, or, you know, and
I mean, what a great day it felt like when we were in the Civic Center accepting the fake check from then Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul. And her support in the department. When we have the public meeting, we're going to schedule another public update about the DRI in general and focus on 36 Elm. And we're hoping to do it in early November. When we do it, the Department of State wants to come because they're so excited about this and how well it's played out. Right, we're one of the few communities that is using and leveraging this $10 million DRI this way. I know that they've already told people, hey, look at what's going on. This is exactly what we'd envisioned, and I don't know that we all knew what they envisioned 7 years ago.
They were up front in the early applications for these things that it was to be seed money.
Yes,
It was to invite investment in underdeveloped areas of our community, and other communities have had a great deal of difficulty getting that invitation accepted.
yeah,
And
even
we
spending
were
the money themselves, much less getting it
exactly.
several times.
We were blessed.
Yeah.
We were. There were good people working behind the scenes to bring people to the table, but we had people actually bid. And when we went out to bid, that could have gone either way.
yeah.
So
And I think this is something that's part of that process that's going on, and Jeff is probably already working on this. And I know we have 12 months of construction, but I do think it would be wise to put together that operating budget so we have some idea.
Oh,
and so
absolutely.
I think that's part of the plan
That's it,
and in
absolutely.
process,
Yeah.
but at some point we would probably look at that.
Yeah.
We could help. I
Yeah.
think the board could help with that.
Absolutely need it.
Okay.
Yes, that would be one of the board's next steps, because the subcommittees are now have met a few times. They're going to start meeting again later this month or early November, as they start to bring us findings and recommendations, we do need we need to have made a budget and where we're and how it's going to move forward. Yeah, absolutely. With having said that, the first agenda item here is the minutes of the regularly held meeting on September 12th. Are there any corrections or changes anybody's seen to those minutes? Not hearing anybody. Do we have a motion to approve the meeting September 12th LDC meeting minutes?
so move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Under financial report, 9 months ending September 30th. Mark?
So the Bonaccio check was deposited yesterday, so it'll show up in October. The September activity was Fitzgerald illegal, $768, CT mail for $2,560, 2 flatly read bills for $1,000 total, 2 months of insurance for $2,629, and 60% of my payroll for $449. That was it.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Mark? Do we have a motion to approve his report?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Payment of bills, Schedule A. Mark, back to you, I think.
Just, three, the typical monthly insurance for $1,282, my September hours for $399, and CEO wage for the third quarter, $1,562. That's all for September.
Insurance got any of that for today? Any insurance for the and sponsors? Is any of that insurance for the two buildings?
Yeah.
Is that all?
And
And-
technical.
So some of that is gonna go away.
Yeah, some of it, yeah.
Do you want to share?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was just asking, the insurance expenses there, some of those are for the two buildings that were just sold, so some of those expenses will go away going
Okay.
forward. Then you're just left with Tech Meadows, a
Right.
little bit of which might be going away as well.
Right, very good. Any questions about the schedule, payment of bills? We're on payment of bills, right?
Right.
Yep. If not, do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. The review of the 5-year budget, as you can see in front of you, the LDC budget, is there. No changes from what we discussed last time that Pat had written out by hand for us, and now is typewritten, so no changes from our last conversations of where we are. Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve the 5-year budget?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I don't believe we have any other reports, do we, Jeff? Under project reports and resolutions, that we have the small business support applications, and there we go. I'll now turn that to you, Jeff.
There's two projects that we're in the process of trying to work with. One is just one more chapter. You might remember Mike Seville, who came in last week, young fellow who's trying to open the bookstore with his wife down on Ridge Street in the old Whisper Boutique space. We're working with him. Judy and I actually just recently sort of tried to come up with a budget for him to sort of work with. One of the problems that Mike has had is he's
Doing it himself.
right. He's doing a lot of the work himself, and he's spending his own money, and he's doing as much as he can. Obviously, it's as much as we would like to reward him for being able to do it himself. You can't reimburse expenses he doesn't have, and so physical expenses. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to sort of figure out an actual budget that will get him to probably somewhere in the vicinity of $20,000 or so of expenses that we can reimburse 80% of. I think, just because he's sort of working without a lot of deep pocket financing, it may be a process that sort of stretches out a little ways, where we can, for want of a better term, sort of recycle some of the funding. We can use this, to get open. I think we have to be careful to make sure that we don't reimburse anything that's not prior to getting a CO. I'm told the last time I saw him on Tuesday, he was trying to get, Jim, did he say he was trying to open on Thursday or today or tomorrow? I don't know if it's, this weekend.
Yeah.
So he did go through the planning board process. He's had PJ and Aaron, the fire marshal, look at the property. So he's okay as far as the city's needs. It's just a question of getting his construction done. So we're going to try and sort of work with him as we can there, and I'm confident we'll be able to help him. It's just might be a little more of a teething process, even though in many ways he's exactly the kind of business that we're trying to support, right? People who really need the help, and the strictures of the grants make it a little more difficult to do that. But I think if we work with him, we can get something done. The second one there is Tres Mijas, and that's the Mexican restaurant that's going into the old Lorella's. It's complicated a little bit by the fact that there was some support given to Lorella's. We're trying to figure out a way to, as we've done with several other projects, sort of transfer obligations from one grantee to another potential grantee. It's complicated a little bit by the fact that these were two different grants. One of them was the DRI's GF Drive program. Those funds, of course, are gone. Then you have this possibility of looking at this SBS money. So it's not quite as simple as the other projects we've done previously, like the Flower Child Bakery one that was,
Yeah.
one of the workers took over the business. Or we did something similar with Craft on Nine and the new Southpaw Bistro. So this is a little bit more complicated than that. Again, we just worked up, Judy and I just worked up a simple budget for these folks to make it easy for us to sort of at least get a clear understanding of what we can and can't do for them. And I think that's what we'll work on and have something, we should have something by next month to present to the board.
Great. Are they they're opening or close to it?
He thinks he's pretty close to opening as well, before the end of the year. He hasn't gotten me any further than that.
Jeff and I were with Jim Siplon with what was the name of that business review that we did the interview with a few weeks ago? It was a national
Yeah, it's
business review publication.
Yeah, it's an
that-
industry, cities, basically it's a publication that focuses on different cities and highlights them in industrial sort of
Development.
right.
So we were pulling information about the restaurants in the 2-block downtown. And I mean, there were so many that the guy said, how big of a, because we just got done telling we were only 15,000 people.
Yeah.
And he had been referred to us by businesses in Albany that were saying, you really should go down to Glens Falls because of what they're doing. And then we started talking about the DRI and that progress. And he just was like, say that again? Like I mean, there was 23 restaurants
Yeah.
in literally
In a 2-block
radius from
Yeah.
City Hall.
And I have to say, not to interrupt you, but I mean, I have to say, I think it's also, this SBS money is relatively finite, right? I mean, it's a relatively small pool of money that we have remaining. We've been sort of blessed for the last couple of years because we've had DRI money and then COVID money. At the moment, we've only got a relatively small pot of funds that we can have to support businesses. Without picking and choosing winners and losers, I'm really hoping to be able to focus a lot of our efforts on retail businesses going forward. And I think there's a need. That's why I'm very interested in helping this young bookstore. But there's a couple of prime location spots downtown that would be great to get retail. And I've had a lot of restaurants say, we need more retail presence because they're the ones that
drive the
bring
foot
people
back.
here. And then,
Yeah.
and as the mayor pointed out, we've got a lot of restaurants, and I don't want to discourage anyone who comes in, but I think, to the point that the DRI was looking for businesses coming downtown. The COVID money that we had was, the purpose was just to get money into businesses' hands, as fast as you could as recovery. Then I think going forward, it's a conversation we can have. I don't want to exclude any viable businesses, but I think there's maybe some focus on retail is worthwhile.
Yeah, great. And so Market Square, the
Yeah.
master sublease is in your packet.
Yeah, I just want to add a sort of an addendum to this. At the Tuesday council meeting, after we had this lease revision, and as Judy knows, as you guys know, when we sort of revised this and we got the developer to include the basement as part of the space, the entire basement as part of the space that we're leasing, it sort of came to me that through a couple of conversations that there's a real opportunity to monetize the value of that basement.
Sure.
Someone's leasing the space, so because implicitly we could probably we have this grant, this capital project grant that the city's applied for, that we're looking to do some of the renovations. We won't even find out about that until December. So we approached the developer or the architect for Bonaccio, SWBR, which used to be 3T Architects, Scott Townsend, who had sort of given us a proposal to redo, to start thinking about how we can best utilize that basement space. Right, the designs, because of the limitations on how it can be used, it can't be used for residential, it can't be used for occupancy, it can't be used but it can be used for storage without any trouble. They don't ban you from going down there. In fact, if you go into that building, it's the only decent space in the building because they got a nice new floor, that they use as the cap. So when you start thinking about how you might use it as a space, whether it's for the market center folks, people who want to store things there, people who are using the commercial kitchen for equipment, packaging, labeling equipment. If you've got residents and going to have, as Judy said, there's going to be nearly 100 new families, and those are just the ones in this project, right? Forget other people who might be coming in. There might be some great opportunities for utilizing that Even if it's, let's assume it's somewhere down the line, there's someone who's subletting the property, from the LDC to operate this facility. Well, this might be a real opportunity to sort of have a revenue stream that doesn't require a huge amount of investment. What it does require is some planning ahead to figure out, and you can make sure you can access those spaces, right? Is there gonna be elevator access? Is there some other mechanized access? Is there easy stairway access? All those kind of things. So these funds from the city's perspective are gonna help to sort of streamline how the space can relate to the market center, right? This big space next door. If you've got chairs, if you've got things that have to be moved, stored seasonally. These are all the things we're just going to start that conversation and that process in this development. So I think that's, down the road, that will benefit this facility, this complex, we'll say.
Yeah. So that, to add to what Jeff is saying, is that basement space can only be really used for storage. There's, I think, 10 apartments in the building?
Yeah, there's, in that building, yeah.
There's, so 10 apartments on the second and third floors. We're gonna be using the first floor space, and we need some storage in the basement. We're paying $275 a square foot for the storage space in the basement. We probably don't need all of it. Once those residents arrive, based on the planning that's going on, there probably could be storage spaces in that basement that we could sublease or
Correct.
to the residents in the building who would likely want some storage space.
That's
And so, and the cost of that is always generally much greater than $275 a square foot. And so we would actually be earning some income.
Well,
from
what I also anticipate is that we can recoup the cost of installation of a decent,
Yeah.
freight elevator so that it's actually useful for the purposes we need it for, which is tables, chairs, whatever.
Right.
And get paid back for that
Is
by renting out cubicles
Right.
for
Right. And that's why I think the
tenants.
efficiency, it's
Right, so
close
that-
to 4,500 square feet. So, it's not hard to imagine the city needing space for the market center or maybe stuff that's at the pocket park, that we need to store seasonally.
Those
Tables
those-
Right.
and all that
So there's-
stuff, it's
so there's
just
a lot
gotta
of
be able
things
to
that-
move them.
Yeah, so we need to make sure I'm trying to sort of look from both directions. The city is gonna need some assurances that it has access to these spaces and can use them. And at the same time, there might be, as I say, when you have a large enough space, just as a point of reference, I was looking at, the cost of sort of storage spaces, especially in controlled temperature storage spaces. And again, the idea is that there's going to be some private entity ultimately that's going to be, leasing these spaces, helping to defray these costs, right? So we're going to have this body is going to be looking to sort of offset its own costs. Well, if you can get someone who says, listen, I'm happy to lease that space too, and then you figure out what the city needs versus what there might be available to rent it, I think it could work out well.
From a construction standpoint, is there anything that should be considered now to make that more feasible?
Absolutely.
Well, one that they've already-
That's exactly why we're doing this now.
They would
because-
have to they'll have to install an elevator anyway.
Right.
So all
Yeah.
I'm saying is spec time now.
Correct.
To
And
make
this is
sure
the issue.
only one elevator
Right.
is needed.
And this is exactly the
It-
point I made to the
yeah.
council the other day, was because, it's like, well, could we wait until we find out about this capital grant in December? They're working on this now. And so their architect is like, I wouldn't wait until December before you decide you want to start looking at this,
Right.
because now, the reason I also was anxious to work with SWBR is because they also had to keep the historic tax credits intact, right? So they need to make sure they're not doing anything that compromises that. There's an elevator there currently that goes down to the first floor, but it's not, they're gonna build, but it's not designed to go to the basement.
Right.
Now, part of this is sort of creating a separation between the facility here and their tenants upstairs, who are gonna be primarily entering from the alley between hot shots. That's gonna be their primary, where the elevator is. There's a freight elevator on the other side of the building. Now, that's apparently going to be used largely as a chase for utilities and, vents and ducts and wires and things. But there's a possibility we could use that for, you know, if not an elevator, maybe at least like a dumbwaiter or something like that. That equipment and things could be put down in, if not people. So,
But that doesn't help us rent the space to those tenants who also will need to be able to
correct,
move their furniture into the storage unit.
correct. And this
Yeah.
is why we want to look at all these
Yeah.
different options at this
Right,
point.
right.
So that was just sort of an
Well,
addendum because
It's a
it's,
very good architectural firm. I've worked with them a lot in the past,
Yeah.
and I think
Right,
that they're,
they're gonna-
they're good.
But we
Okay.
should get that going.
Yeah, yeah, it's, well, the council passed approval to use some ARPA money for that.
yeah.
Good.
Just so you
Yeah.
know,
Would
that's
it be
what.
more
that's
cost
what
effective to just add the basement onto the elevator they're gonna build?
If possible, and that's why I want to talk to Scott about that. I think that, you know, what they're trying to do is they're trying to sort of, you know, how do you then create a security bubble between the tenants and the space? Maybe there's doors.
But
on
there
both
was
sides.
no security there in our downtown historic buildings. There was always residential up and commercial down, and there was usually like a stairwell, you know, and later on an elevator. But it wasn't
Yeah.
segregated from the two spaces weren't segregated because you can't. You
Right,
can't have two of everything
yeah.
in those buildings.
Yeah, well, it may well be something as simple as having a door, you know, there's, sometimes you have doors on both sides, right? There could be a door in
Yeah.
the foyer and a door on the back side that
And-
goes down to the basement. or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
There's a lot of ways we can do it.
Special code to
Yeah,
get
the
down
point
there.
of this is that, I just, that this was post, right, you know, after we, in fact, I think it was sort of driven when we were, the discussion around the master lease. And, you know, we had sort of gotten them to include the entire basement. And so I asked them, you know, let's put a value on it, because I think there is a value. And, you know, down the road, there'll be a renegotiation about that. But I think
Right.
there's an opportunity, you know, and a limited risk opportunity to really find some value in that, for both the city, the LDC, and a private enterprise.
Yep.
Great. I don't believe we have any other business. I don't.
We've got
a resolution to adopt the master
sorry.
lease.
Oh,
And the sublease, just to note, the tax implications in the sublease were eliminated. Just you know, yeah, for the record. Right, exactly. There will be no taxes paid. There will be no taxes. Right.
so do we have any questions about the lease? No? If not, do we have a motion to approve the master sublease? So, such a weird, master sublease, there you go.
Right.
Any questions?
No.
Motion? Would
So
somebody
moved.
like to make a motion? Denise? Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I don't believe we have any other business. I don't believe we need an executive session. Before we make a motion to adjourn, I want to, we will be sending you out emails inviting you to the subcommittees that will be re-engaging in the next few weeks regarding the, remember there's 3 subcommittees, one for each of the 36 Elm projects, right? Ventures within our 36 Elm project. One for the commercial kitchen, one for the Maker's Market, and one for the wayfinding system. So we will be scheduling those meetings.
Is there a form for management and oversight, I think?
Well, the former management oversight is really more of
Gotcha.
this
Oh,
group
sure.
overlooking that. And our next step is to start to, like we were saying, look at the budget to get where these subcommittees are and what their recommendations are so far, and starting to create a budget that plans for implementing these suggestions. So those subcommittees will, and then also you'll be getting an update, and hope you could all try to attend the public DRI meeting where we will, right now, everything else in the DRI is green light moving. It's really the questions about how 36 Elm plays out that I think are the biggest questions. Of course, I'm not always the best judge because I only get sometimes the negative questions. So anyway, we're gonna give an overview of everything, where we are, how it's going, talk about the housing, talk about the whole 49 million, have the Department of State come and tell the public how happy they are with what we're doing and the successes of this. We'll have update finishing dates, projects. We're hoping that by the end of the year that the market center is done. We think they'll be quite finishing it up, but maybe not. Depends on how the weather is. We're assuming that we'll have a ribbon cutting and engage people in the spring, in April. We know that the farmer's market usually starts in May, comes out of wherever their winter home is. Sometimes that's at the Civic Center, sometimes it's at the mall. I think the last couple of years it's been at the mall. So we're thinking by then we'll have events start there. So we don't want to push it. We are asking the contractors to finish up as quickly as we can. A lot of that's made a little more tentative because we need to push the pocket park as well. So I think we'd have liked to have finished one, then started the other, but that is not the case. So
If weather permits, could we do our annual meeting at the market
I
center?
think we could.
In March?
In March?
I think
A
no.
little crazy.
Well, we will
If
have.
you want to talk to me about August, that's
We have heating.
right, exactly.
So we're all right. It's not like we'd be sitting with a table in the middle of a barren room. I wouldn't do that to you.
Just an echo.
Absolutely, we can look at it.
Bring you.
All right. Yes. Bring a space heater. You'll be fine. All right. So anyway, that's all I've got.
Maybe we could at least have a tour.
Yeah.
If we
Oh,
don't
sure.
have a meeting there, maybe we could have a tour before the opening.
Yes, absolutely. Oh,
Since we've been so.
I think we definitely can get
All
a
right.
tour. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I'd like to invite the governor up for ribbon cutting, but one thing at a time.
Right.
All right. Thank you. That was all I had. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Our last public entity meeting is the Glens Falls Urban Renewal Agency. I believe you've got your packets in front of you. So I'd like to call to order the Glens Falls Urban Renewal Agency. We're still October 10th, 2024. We still have a quorum. The first docket on our first agenda item really is administrative reports, approvals and resolutions. The minutes to the regular meeting held on September 12th. I know you have this in your packet. Any corrections or changes to the minutes?
No, I make a motion to approve as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Mark, a financial report for the last 9 months ending September 30th.
All we've had is just the Fitzgerald bills, nothing recent. And the audit expense, $3,600, and $120 for Whittemore to prepare the 1099s.
Okay.
That's all we've had for the year.
Right, we approved those since the last meeting, so nothing this month, right?
Full expenses.
Right.
Great. And so do we have a motion to accept Mark's report?
So moved?
Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. Then the review of the 5-year budget. Again, I don't believe anything's changed since we reviewed this last month with Pat, except we now don't have it in handwriting. We have it typed up. There's no real changes here. We are working together to plan to increase the revenue, which we hope to bring you in November or December. And is there any questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion to approve our 5-year budget?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I do not believe we have any other business. I do not believe we need to go into executive session. Before we make a motion to adjourn, I just want to review with you that What the hope is, and I know we've spoken about this, but we're hoping by next time we meet to have a true proposal about the city forecloses on 1 to 3 properties a year that somebody doesn't come and take. And we have an option at that point, the city does, to try to put that straight up to auction and then try to recover as much of the back taxes are at the property, right? By the time that happens, you're 3 to 4 years in arrears of everything. Somebody's walked away from the property. When we do that, I think that's been, get what we can out of it. You get a lowest bid. You might not be able to pay all the taxes back, but you pay what you can back. Remember that the city has to make the school district and the county whole, and then gets whatever might be left, whether we get back those back taxes or not. The urban renewal has had opportunities and taken them where the last time I believe was several years ago where urban renewal got the property from the city and then found a not-for-profit in the form of, at that time it was Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity was able to invest in the property. We were able to provide that to Habitat for Humanity, get the taxes back, and then they invested in the property through sweat equity or what else, and put that property back on the tax roll. When we do things like that, urban renewal has a unique opportunity here to control a little bit who gets the property. Whereas if we just go out to audit, somebody might just flip that property, and then you might go from one bad situation to a slightly better bad situation. There is a desire for us to try to invest a little bit. So find some money that we could get for urban renewal, that we might get a property that's in back taxes, make the city whole as much as whole as we can, and then, but maybe invest $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 into the property, and then insure and put it out to family members and young people who might be wanting to move into Glens Falls, and have a commitment to invest in it. It's a way to gain a little control, but there would be some financial burden or commitment to that, right? Because in doing that, the urban renewal would need to be sewing up the property and helping the city in that tax easement. So I think I have not brought this to the Common Council. I'm not asking for a resolution. What we're going to do is by the next meeting have that proposal written up, first to let you see what you think, right? If not, then urban renewal probably doesn't have, I don't believe that the state government or the federal government has any more urban renewal programs coming forward. So urban renewal, as this was originally created, doesn't exist anymore. But this is within the guise of urban renewal, and certainly an acceptable way. It's what some other communities are using it for things like this. I think it helps us, especially as Glens Falls becomes more and more desirable, and we know that people would love to be able to get a hold of these properties and just flip them. And although that's not necessarily a bad thing, it doesn't give us any influence whatsoever. We have no control over a property going from one bad situation to the next to the next.
Well, also, if you're trying to focus on, home ownership,
Yeah, right, our CBG money, it fits perfectly because we're getting young couples looking to buy a home. Thank you, I'm sorry, I forgot that too, right? We have access to young people that are coming into Glens Falls, families that want to through that home buyers program. So if urban renewal could help secure a property, make some minor changes to it, then those people could apply through CBG, which the city is also.
One of the challenges you have, and you may be aware of it, but the home ownership program we have, and I know Jim knows a lot more about it than I do, but is capped on how much the property can cost.
Correct.
Right? In fact, if it's over, and it doesn't matter when they say, oh, we'll pay the difference, or my mom will help me, it doesn't matter. You can't qualify, and I think it's like $221,000 now. If you could find a new home we have $221,000, let me know. I'm going to move there. But you know, because of that, there's an opportunity maybe that the city could create sort of a wedge in there where you could say, and maybe it's, you know, you don't do the final landscaping, or you don't, whatever it is, you know, it's not, you're not designed to lose a bunch of money so that a young couple can get in there, but you could have a formula or some model in which you say, maybe it's just the basic size, you know, it could be all sorts of things. But I think that's an opportunity that you just don't have now.
Sure.
Is there any way, say if you did do an auction, that you could stipulate that an urban renewal property has, that you cannot use it for short-term rentals?
Yeah.
Just
You
have
could-
that in the.
Urban
the
renewal
deed.
could definitely do that and.
But not through the,
well,
I mean,
No, you
Not
can't
the
do that in the
yeah,
auctions.
you can't do that in the auction.
Can't do that in the auction. okay.
No, right, we
But you
can't
could
do
put
it what we currently have, but we certainly could set up guidelines for somebody that's applying through urban renewal
Yeah.
for one of these properties. So
Maybe.
that is exactly, or, you know, you could at least get the understanding. I know that, so long before I became mayor now, over 30 years ago, I don't know if I was more impoverished then than I am now, being mayor or not, but I'm low income, I worked in human services, I applied and got a first time home buyers grant here in the city of Glens Falls. And it helped my wife and I go from renting a 2-bedroom apartment to actually becoming homeowners. And in that case, they did have a, you know, we had to live there, couldn't rent it,
Yep.
couldn't be a multifamily house. So you do have
You can
set
require.
up, you can require
You
certain
can
things.
require residency.
And
Okay?
it- and it
in
wasn't
order
just
to
a
even-
free gift.
Even in an auction?
Yeah, and it wasn't just a free gift.
Well, no, not in an auction. You can't require anything in an
We
auction.
wouldn't auction
Wait,
it
this-
though, right?
this was
No,
a-
no,
that's the
renewal,
point.
No, that's right.
Yeah,
That's the point.
anything
Right.
we can do to have
Yep.
owner occupied, how, I mean,
Yeah, it's
I
a
think that
critical
is so
problem.
important.
I mean, and I remember it because also it was new to me. I didn't understand first that was an option, right? They helped me pay for the down payment of the house but it wasn't free money. It was you have to live in this house.
And 10 years. It was,
and
it depreciated
My
over
wife
the
and
10
I
years.
had bought something else or lost the home. That money would come back to the
Has to pay it
CBG
back.
program up to, and it was a sliding over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if at 5 years, half that money would have went back and the other half, I wouldn't have gotten, I wouldn't have had much equity in the home anyway, but that would have gone back to the bank. And so it's a great way. And if urban renewal can help properties to not go out to auction, but then could help it get and find young people to move, yes, you could certainly limit what's done with them. Yes.
So when I first got into the housing business, I was in Albany County and I set up a for-profit entity and I was buying Albany County tax foreclosed properties and I was stabilizing them and then I was selling them. And so
It was
I
flipping.
So I was.
It sounds very nice, but it's flipping.
So I would go in and we would, if it needed a new roof, we put on a new roof. We didn't do a complete rehab, but fix the windows, fix
Yeah.
whatever absolutely needed to do. And we were selling them to create home ownership in Albany County and mostly in the South End. And that's what I was doing. And yes, it was a for-profit entity, but we were working closely with the Albany County Board of Supervisors, and we were doing this.
Well, it's great that you say, I didn't know that, but you were on the first, Pat and I are coming to see you about, help us write this proposal, because we have this idea, but we don't know
And-
exactly how to do it.
And the second thing I want to say, and Jeff told me this yesterday, there's a nonprofit in Essex County that's starting to do some work in Warren County. It used to be called Pride of Ticonderoga, and their name is now North Country Rural Development.
Yeah.
Nicole Justice Green is the executive director, and they're doing this up in Essex County, exactly what you're talking
Okay.
about. And they created a land bank up there
Yes.
to do this.
Yes, they did.
And we should talk to Nicole, I think also about this, because I don't, most of the work she's been doing is in northern Warren County, but maybe it would be a good fit, and maybe they'd be willing to do some stuff here. But what they did to avoid the issue with I think the auctions, was created a land bank. Well, and I'm sorry, the flipping, They do it through a land bank and
Bank
then
consent,
it's,
right.
it's,
And
yes.
they can control.
Yeah.
I merely point out to you that if you use an agent, an agency of the cities to do this, you're in business for forever. Okay, it's not, as you just said, there's nothing left for urban renewal. There's never gonna be any more money, and there's no real reason for urban renewal to continue. But it will have to continue if you are the basis behind 10-year loans or 20-year loans. You have to stay in business.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so I just want you to,
Well, no, I
maybe
think that
some
that's-
other entity would be the better
Setting up a
receptacle.
nonprofit that's serving
Right.
the city. would
Okay.
be
Sure,
great.
yeah, I mean, and I was not envisioning that, but I was just trying to figure out a way in which to not put these properties out to
Tax auction. Right.
And so if we could use urban renewal as a go-between, to even get it to another organization, I think that we should discuss that, and then I need to share these thoughts with the common council too, and make sure that we all agree. It's either that, so what we're gonna do is present you some ideas and take your input, and then modify it, or based on your input. And then when we think we have an idea, I'll talk to the common council and see if they agree. If they do, we've got something. If we don't, then we probably ought to look at a plan of closing down urban renewal.
It's just, right, it's
Because we're paying for the audit every year.
I was just gonna say,
Because
yeah.
and that's what's causing, all right, that's why we're having this conversation.
And if you had a plan for, let's say, a not-for-profit to set up a land bank that could operate in place of that, then I think that it would make
Might
sense.
achieve all of
We've
the
worked
things.
our way out of business.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
guess
right.
the question would be, is there an avenue for city foreclosed buildings to, as a point of fact, move to this entity?
Certainly,
There is.
Oh, yeah.
certainly.
I mean, I think that's what they're doing there, but, that's why I would bring her in and have a discussion with them and how they set that up. and
Just
what
as a
it is
sidebar to
county.
that, I had a conference call with her about a week ago, and that was regarding, they're working with, there's a program, an HCR program just came out called VRIP. Don't want to go into at this point in the meeting, but that's a vacant rental improvement program. It's designed to provide funding for vacant upper story buildings, things like downtown spaces that need extra work, whatever. And they're actually working now in not only Essex County, but also northern Warren County. They've identified, I think they had about 65 properties or units that they were looking to rehab. So they were asking for the same grant we were. So rather than sort of saying, how do we make one grant, or let's just agree that we're focusing on, we have about almost 20 in Glens Falls. They're looking at the ones there. We're all sort of working together to try and to cover roughly 3 counties, really.
And so
Contract with them.
there are several sources at the Housing Finance Agency and HCR that help to do this type of thing. And another person you could talk to is Pat Tadich.
I was just gonna say,
She
yeah.
set up
She-
the same program when Warren County doesn't do it anymore, but they used to when she
Wow.
was there. And they set up a program, and they were taking tax foreclosed properties, they were paying for the full rehab, and it had to create home ownership, and they actually even did some projects in the city.
Wow.
But it was with funding from the, it's called the AHC. It's a program through the Housing Finance Agency, it's the Affordable Housing Corporation. I used to sit on that board years ago, but that funding can cover that cost, and Warren County used to access that money for years.
Wow, I didn't know there was money.
So there is
That's
money, and there's also maybe even a nonprofit you could work with.
Yeah, and so maybe, we either could be working ourselves out of urban renewal or back into urban renewal, but.
Whichever
we
is
should
more
look at-
cost
That's
effective.
right, what's more cost effective and is a tool that we can achieve this, right? And, So I definitely will do that, and I'll also, I know Bob Landry certainly, a housing authority, is a housing expert as well, or authority, I guess. I didn't want to say, he's not.
The authority,
housing,
right.
The authority on housing authority.
Right.
So I think that's where we're headed, and I wanted you to know it was coming. I appreciate you passing this, this 5-year budget, but that's where we're at. It's a great conversation to have. We started it when we were talking to Kara about the, it's the, right now we're paying for audits. It came when, geez, we don't have any activity here. And well, maybe we should shut urban renewal down. And then it was, well, you'll never open it back up again.
Right.
So we don't know if that's a good thing or not, but we know we have this need to help guide properties from foreclosure back to family ownership. So
Do we have any properties that the urban renewal's controlling right now?
I don't believe so. Well,
No,
we
we
have an
sold them.
opportunity.
We sold
We
them.
sold them.
could.
We sold
All
them.
right,
We had
I have
three.
3 new ones
Right.
that
On my block?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the map, the city map that well, but I do know where your block is. But
I was just gonna say, we do
That's
not
one
want
of the
need
three.
to disclose to
Yes,
your residents.
that's right.
Right.
Got it.
So
Right.
Got it.
I don't. So, but what we do have 3, and that's why we need to move now, at least with the idea one way or another. All right.
Yep.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you. all
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.